Hi, this is Mr. Lou, and I am your 7-Minute Sensei. This is the place where we talk about Utah State strands and standards in 7 minutes or less. Today, my topic is about economics. We've got 5 strands to cover, so timer, start the clock. In strand 1, we talked about a definition of economics and how it's based on this law of scarcity, which says that we have unlimited wants and needs, but unfortunately, we have limited resources. So how do people decide to allocate these limited resources? There are 4 factors of production. They include natural resources, human resources, capital resources, and entrepreneurship. In this strand, we also talk about opportunity costs and trade-offs. These are opportunity costs are the value of your next best option. So if we decide to study today, maybe it's giving up that time of going and watching a movie with your friends. Okay? When you're looking at trade-offs, this is where we talk about production possibility curves. And we decide how much of 2 different products that we're going to produce. Do we produce some corn? Do we produce some zucchinis? How are we going to decide that? Next, we talk about 3 basic economic questions. They are what we will produce, how we will produce, and for whom we will produce. There are 4 basic economic systems. They include traditional, command, market, and mixed. Most economies today, we're observing mixed economies, a combination of some government intervention and but yet some private property, and so this combination, that's mixed. When you're looking at a command economy, these are government-controlled economies, and then when you're looking at a market economy, these are very little, if any, government intervention. In strand 2, we talk about free markets and voluntary exchange. Our ability to start our own businesses, own private property. We're encouraged or incentivized to start our own businesses and become entrepreneurs. This idea of a circular flow means that we can go to work and earn an income, take that income and then spend it in buy products and services, buy homes, and put people to work. And this circular flow takes place. There are, in free markets, there may be barriers to entry, and that would be a type of business that would be difficult to start. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about different types of market structures. Supply and demand. Law of supply and demand is based on, law of supply is based on if somebody is willing to pay more for products, producers will increase their supply. The law of demand says as price goes up, demand goes down. As price goes down, demand goes up. And we observe this inverse relationship in the law of demand. In this strand, we also talk about cost benefits, and are there marginal benefits for spending more money? An example might be the cost of getting additional education, and what is the benefit of that? Are we going to make more money? And we look at this cost-benefit analysis. Diminishing marginal returns. Remember, that's an example of where you eat that first piece of cake and it tastes delicious. The second piece, the second bite may be not as good. The third bite is even less interesting. So we diminish the marginal utility. Types of market structures include perfect competition, where we have identical products and we're just competing on price. Not realistic. It really doesn't exist, but that's what it would look like. If we have monopolistic competition, we have a lot of competitors and they're trying to differentiate their products. So you look at, say, for example, different types of shoes that may be available, how Nike will distinguish their shoes from maybe Adidas shoes. Okay? And then you're looking at different types of competition, like oligopolies are just a few companies that are competing. So like in the automobile industry, you have Ford Motor Company, General Motors, Toyota, Hyundai, and so forth. So there's just a few companies, and those are oligopolies. And then you have monopolies where you just have one company that controls everything, your price, and they have a monopoly. In the United States, monopolies are against the law. And so you have something called antitrust laws. And those antitrust laws that you need to know about are the Sherman Act, the Federal Trade Commission Act, and the Clayton Act. And those laws are to encourage more competition. Economic theory, you need to know about Adam Smith and his Wealth of Nation book and capitalism. And then also on the other end of the spectrum, you have Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, and where they promote the Communist Manifesto and really government-controlled economies. And next, we need to go to strand 3, where we talk about fiscal and monetary policy. And fiscal policy, that's government taxing and spending. Monetary policy, that's the central bank, and they control money supply. In the United States, we're talking about Chairman Jerome Powell. And Chairman Powell and the other members of his committee look at things such as interest rates, reserve requirements. These are some of the things that the central bank does to manage and monitor the banking system. Also in this strand, we talk about different types of taxes, from progressive, regressive, proportional. A sales tax is a type of proportional tax because you would pay X% on the good that you buy, but it also is considered a regressive tax because of the example would be poorer people are paying a disproportionate amount of their income on the sales tax. So that's why it is also regressive. Functions of money. The functions of money include a medium of exchange, a store of value, and also a measure of value. With money, you'll have fiat money, which is the paper money, and that just says, this is our currency, trust in the government, they'll back this currency. When you're looking at commodity money, that's more like the gold and the silver, which has more tangible value there. Forms of business include a sole proprietorship, a partnership, and corporations. Those are your 3 major types of businesses. Understand liabilities included. When you have a sole proprietorship, you could have a lot of liability. Understand on when you're talking about creating a corporation, you're giving up equity. Finally, when we look at strand 4, we're talking about productivity and how do we increase productivity, the role and responsibility of human resource to improve productivity in organizations. And when we increase our productivity, we increase GDP per capita, or in other words, our standard of living. GDP per capita is based on GDP, which includes your consumer spending, investment spending, government spending, plus your exports minus your imports. And we divide that by a population, and we get a standard of living, which, by the way, standard of living also includes things such as the health of the people, freedoms that we receive in those countries, education. Those are all factored into standard of living. Ethics and economics, this is questions, ethical questions such as, is it okay for governments to take over somebody's property, like eminent domain? This would also include like climate control, pollution, and whether or not it's okay to maybe build in areas that may be areas where people of low income live. A lot of ethical questions. Finally, strand 5 is changing global economy. We clearly see a global economy and where we're experiencing things now such as trade deficits, where we're importing more than we're exporting. There are trade barriers like tariffs in our trade wars. Absolute and comparative advantage. You're going to see some countries like Saudi Arabia has an absolute advantage with their oil production. China with their rare earth minerals. United States with its agriculture products, soybeans. Those are absolute advantage. Comparative advantage may be we may decide to go and import products from another country because lower employment costs. There may be just some good reasons through comparative advantages that we will import more. Finally, currency exchange. Understand that different countries have different types of currency. In the United States, we have the US dollar that is considered the world currency. However, when you travel in China, you're buying in RMB, renminbi, which is the government currency there, and you have 7 won to 1 US dollar. In Mexico, you're buying in pesos, and you would have like 19 pesos to 1 US dollar. Canada, the loonies, and the Canadian dollars, and so forth. That's currency exchange. Remember that you travel, and you might get some great bargains if you're traveling places. I apologize for going over the 7-minute rule for the 7-minute Sensei. This is Mr. Liu, your 7-minute Sensei, saying so long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye, adios, thank you, and good luck.